Hi, in this video lecture, we're going to learn the different ways in which you can access the elements of a vector. There are two ways in which you can access the elements of a vector. One is using this square bracket, or you can say array indexing operator. The other one is the at method, okay, or you can say at function. So let us try to use the array indexing first and try to understand how do we access it. And then we'll also see at the at, and then we'll try to see the differences between these two and which one to use and okay, what is the benefit of one over the other. Whenever you want to create a vector, we can just specify vector, and within the Angular braces, we specify the type of the element what you wanted, followed by the vector object. And I've created a vector of integers and I've initialized with 5 elements. So if you want to know the number of elements, you can always use v.size. Now, if you want to access the first element, we can just try to write v, the vector object name, square bracket, we can specify the index. The index is 0 for the first element. So this will basically give me the first element, which is 12, right? Now, on the same lines, if you basically wanted to access the element with the help of at function, we can just use v dot at. We can pass on the index, and this will basically work the same way as the statement in line number 9. Now, since we have two different ways of accessing the same, the elements of the vector, we might be wondering which one should we use and why do we really have two different things, right? Now, there is a difference between, access the elements using square bracket and at in case if the index is out of range. In that particular case, the index is within the range and the valid index is like, if there are 5 elements, the index is between 0 to 4, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. So till that, point, there is no difference. Like, for example, if I say 4 here, or if I say 4 here, then both are going to give me the last element out here. But let us say I'll try to give an index which is out of range. Now, let me just try to run this particular program and see what really happens. And here I just got some garbage value. I got a 0, but it could be any garbage value. Whereas, let me try to use the at, and then let me try to use the index which is out of range. Let me try to run this particular program out here. And you can just observe that what happened is it terminated the program after throwing an instance of std out of range. So at function basically throws an exception, right? We can also look into the documentation of these two methods of accessing. And I'm referring to the website like c++.com. And in the c++.com, the operator square bracket, you can just see returns a reference to the element at position n in the vector container, right? It also says that a similar member function at has the same behavior as this operator function, except that at is bound checked and signals if the requested position is out of range by throwing an out of range exception, right? Okay. Now, same way, if you want, you can also go and look at the at function. In the function automatically checks whether n is within the bounds of valid elements in the vector, throwing an out of range exception if it is not. This is in contrast with member operator that does not check against bounds. Fine. Now here, when we use an index which is out of bound with the array indexing operator, it just gave me some garbage value. It might even give you a runtime error like segmentation fault if you do not have access that particular element. Fine, it's wrong to access the element outside the boundary of an array. Now, I'd like to handle the exception. Let me try to use this try block, and then I'll use catch. Okay, the message is clearly mentioned that it basically throws out of range exception. I can either use that or I'll just try to use ... which is generic exception. And then I'll just try to say that exception caught. And then let me just try to use the array indexing out here. I'm trying to run this program. It did not throw me any exception. Whereas this one, what it does is the at operator or the at function basically throws an exception. Fine. Yeah. Now, here, using an array indexing and giving invalid index did not give me any problem. But whenever you run the program with checks. Like for example, Valgrind, if you're working on Linux platform, similar to that, we have an option called as fsanitize equal to address, which will check for memory leakage as well as will also check for uh, accessing the data outside the memory block of a heap block, especially, right? So I've just set that particular flag fsanitize equal to address, and after that, I'm just trying to use at out here, and remember at will throw me an exception, and after once you handle the exception, the program continues the normal flow. Whereas instead of using this at, I'm just using the array indexing using an invalid index here. So you can just observe it did terminate the program. Terminate the program by just, you can just observe there is an issue out here telling that heap buffer overflow at address, because whenever you use a vector and you try to assign some element, the actual elements will be stored in a heap block, and uh, you are trying to access the data which is beyond the range out here. You can just see whatever the address, the base address plus the offset is located 12 bytes to the right of the 20 byte region. I have an array of 5 element, vector of 5 elements, so 20 bytes was allocated, and what you are accessing was 12 bytes after that. It is after 3 elements. So you have 5 elements, you are accessing the 8th element. Fine. So this basically throws me an appropriate error. So if you're working on Linux platform, you can basically use the Valgrind. It will also give me the same kind of problem. Now, the question is, which one should I basically use? The array indexing operator is faster when compared to at function because it does not verify if the index is within the valid range or not. It just keeps working on. In case if there is a problem, it terminates the program. Whereas the at function, every time you pass on the index, it has to verify if the index is within the valid range. It is between 0 to n-1. If it is within the valid range, okay, it will allow the accessing and gives me the element. And in case if it is not within the valid range, then it has to throw an exception. So using the at function is slower when compared to using array indexing. Okay, but yes, speed should not be the only thing to consider. Like there's always say that, okay, speed thrills, but okay, kills, right? The same way out here. Now, we should always write programs where if we do anything wrong, it has to indicate us telling that it is wrong and we need to rectify that. Rather than allowing us to do wrong and then suddenly, okay, abruptly the program terminating, we might not even know why it has terminated, where exactly it has terminated. Debugging such kind of programs can lead to big trouble. So I hope, okay, the uh, difference between accessing the elements of the vector using the at function and the array indexing is clear. Thank you.